US President Donald Trump has ordered a pause on US military assistance to Ukraine.
Germany's leader of the CDU said Friday's dispute between Volodymyr Zelensky and Donald Trump was a manufactured escalation.
French lawmakers divided on strategy concerning Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine and European defense.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu takes the stand in his ongoing trial for alleged corruption.
US President Donald Trump has ordered a pause on US military aid to Ukraine following his clash with President Volodymyr Zelensky at the Oval Office on Friday. A White House official said Trump hopes the move will pressure Zelensky into engaging in peace talks with Russia, following the Ukrainian president's comments that an end to the war is still very, very far away. It comes after President Trump told reporters during a White House press conference that Zelensky would not be around very long if he does not make a deal with Russia.
Somebody doesn't want to make a deal, and if somebody doesn't want to make a deal, I think that person won't be around very long. That person will not be listened to very long because I believe that Russia wants to make a deal.
For his part, President Zelensky says Russian President Vladimir Putin can't be trusted to maintain a ceasefire and says Ukrainians won't lay down their arms without security commitments from the United States and Europe. The dispute between the US and Ukrainian leaders has also thrown a potential mineral agreement into doubt, although Trump on Monday said the pact is still a great deal. The pause on aid is not believed to be a permanent end of US assistance and comes as Trump is preparing to give his State of the Union address to a joint session of Congress on Tuesday night.
European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has announced a plan that she hopes will mobilize 800 billion euros to rearm Europe. The plan, set out in a letter sent to EU leaders, will be discussed by the 27 EU members at an extraordinary summit dedicated to defense on Thursday.
We are in an era of rearmament, and Europe is ready to massively boost its defense spending, both to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
Von der Leyen explained that some 150 billion euros could come from a new instrument for defense spending. She did not clarify during her statement how this money would be raised and did not take questions from journalists. But Brussels expects the bulk of the funds, some 650 billion euros, according to their calculations, to come from national budgets. Von der Leyen has therefore proposed relaxing a clause within the fiscal limits to allow countries to increase their defense spending to 1.5% of their GDP. The President also calls for using part of the EU budget for cohesion to invest in defense, mobilizing private capital and increasing the scope of the European Investment Bank.
Leader of the CDU, Friedrich Merz, who will likely become Germany's next chancellor, called Friday's dispute between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, US President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance a manufactured escalation. Speaking at a press conference in Hamburg, Merz said it is now the time for Europe to show it can act independently. Friday's meeting at the Oval Office took a heated turn when Trump and Vance criticized the Ukrainian leader for what they called disrespectful behavior, leading to Zelensky's abrupt exit from the White House without finalizing the two nations' minerals agreement. European leaders have since rallied around the Ukrainian president, with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer holding a summit in London following the clash. Starmer and French President Emmanuel Macron are now working together to present a peace plan to Donald Trump, with the UK Prime Minister acknowledging that Europe needs to do more on its own defence and security. The two nations are also working to recruit other countries to send troops to Ukraine to protect a ceasefire in what Starmer calls a coalition of the willing.
The Vatican shared early on Tuesday that Pope Francis was resting after he suffered further setbacks in his fight against pneumonia. The Pope had 2 new acute respiratory crises that required him to resume using non-invasive mechanical ventilation to breathe. Doctors extracted what they said were copious amounts of mucus from his lungs on Monday. Although the doctors used the past tense to indicate that the crises were over, they did not specify if the Pope was still stable. The Vatican said the accumulated mucus was a reaction to the original pneumonia and not a new infection. It added that Pope Francis remained alert, oriented, and cooperated with medical personnel. The crises were a new setback in what has become a more than 2-week battle by the Pope to overcome a complex respiratory infection.
What strategy should France and the EU adopt when it comes to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine? This topic was debated on Monday evening in France's lower house of parliament, the National Assembly, where I am currently standing. And this symbolic debate without a vote at the end comes right as French President Emmanuel Macron is pushing for a common EU defense framework in response to the lightning rapprochement between the US and Russia. And while military affairs are part of the French president's reserved domains, ultimately it's Parliament that decides on whether to increase military spending. And on Monday evening, one thing is clear: the National Assembly remains divided on this question. The far-right leader of the National Rally Party, Marine Le Pen, said that although she believes France should continue supporting Ukraine, that the country should focus on its national interest as a priority. She also said that she was against any common European defense strategy. Both the Communist Party as well as the hard-left France Unbowed Party also said that they were against any increased military spending. But in a rare occurrence, the Green Party and the Socialist Party said that they agreed with the government's general position on Ukraine and a common EU defense strategy. A second debate without a vote is scheduled this time at the Senate on Tuesday.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu took the stand on Tuesday in his ongoing trial for alleged corruption. He will answer to charges of fraud, breach of trust, and accepting bribes in 3 separate cases. Among the charges, he is accused of promoting advantageous regulations for media moguls in exchange for favorable coverage of himself and his family. Netanyahu denies wrongdoing, saying the charges are a witch hunt orchestrated by a hostile media and a biased legal system out to topple his lengthy rule.
As if not eating until sunset wasn't enough, Palestinians in Gaza are now worried they won't eat at all. Just as the calendar marks the start of the month of Ramadan and the first phase of the ceasefire with Hamas comes to an end, Israel has decided to stop entry of all food aid and other goods into Gaza.
تسكير المعابر حتزيد سوء فوق السوء اللي احنا موجودين فيه، يعني هو حالنا اصلا في وجود فتح المعابر مش حسن، فما بالك لو سكروا المعابر حيكون تزداد الامور سوءا فوق السوء. ما فيش حاجة يعني كويسة أصلا في البلد كله.
Israel's halt on goods and aid, including fuel, is aimed at pressuring Hamas into accepting its new proposal for extending the ceasefire. But now, with no agreement on the second phase in sight, concerns are growing from Palestinians that Israel's decision will exacerbate the already dire conditions after more than 15 months of war. Most of Gaza's over 2 million people depend on humanitarian aid. The move has been condemned by the international community, while Hamas has called it a, quote, war crime and blatant attack on truce negotiations. Russian strikes targeted Ukraine overnight, injuring 4 people. The casualties were reported in a drone attack on the Black Sea port city of Odessa late on Monday, according to Ukraine's state emergency service. Officials said critical infrastructure and residential buildings were damaged, leading to power cuts across parts of the city. The northeastern city of Sumy was also struck in the early hours of Tuesday. Ukraine's State Emergency Service said a strike sparked a fire at a children's health facility, but no injuries were reported. The attack comes after US President Donald Trump on Monday announced a pause in military assistance to Ukraine in a bid to pressure Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to engage in negotiations to end the war with Russia. OVP leader Christian Stocker was sworn in as Austria's new Chancellor on Monday, heading a three-party coalition government. After months of talks, his centre-right party, the centre-left Social Democrats and the Liberal Neos clinched a deal last week. SPO's leader Andreas Babler has been sworn in as Vice-Chancellor. A former lawyer, 64-year-old Stocker has been a member of the Austrian parliament since 2019, but has never served in a national government. Stocker has expressed his commitment to the European Union and is critical of Russia. The coalition agreement includes introducing stricter measures for asylum seekers, revising tenancy laws, and implementing planned benefit cuts.